are going to the hospital and neither of us can drive.
You can sweat copper pipes with a lighter. Oh my god! Holy crud! That's a real nice pile of stuff there. No idea what I'm gonna do with it. Exactly the right people. Just keep showing up at exactly the right time. No way. Hi, I'm Roy here at Sanso Tōda, where we're transforming this 230-year-old Ryokan in the mountains of Fukuoka, Japan, into a world-class retreat center. This episode is all about how we cleared the mountains of clutter that we inherited when we bought the building. We could have hired a demolition crew and had everything cleared out in a matter of a few days, but I was sure there were some hidden treasures, items that you just can't replace by ordering online. At the same time, I didn't want to be a hoarder, especially when you're creating a space for rejuvenation and transformation. The things you have in the space and the amount of space you have really matter. So I'm finding that sweet spot between honoring the past and making room for new beginnings. And thank you so much for being here. I hope you find a touch of magic and inspiration for whatever matters most to you in your life. Enjoy. From the first time I set foot in this building, there was something I couldn't wait to do. Open up this corridor between the front entrance and the back of the dining room, where these panoramic windows look out over our waterfall. The main obstacle was this closed-off service area for the restaurant waitstaff, full of little things that had multiplied over decades. It was mostly glassware, small appliances for heating water and hand towels, and other things that looked a little bit dirty and maybe not the highest quality. This timestamp machine probably made its last clock out when the restaurant was last open a few years ago. Josh, Tom, and I got to work clearing out the area. Throughout this video, you're going to see us packing things into different kinds of plastic bags, boxes, and other containers and carrying them off screen. I'm going to break down where it's all going later in the video. At this point, we didn't even know ourselves where most of it would end up. We just started out with one key decision that determined which pile something went into. Is this something we might keep, or does it definitely have to go? As I was removing those shelves, my camera ran out of battery without my noticing. But next, I took out that yellow divider and the sliding doors next to it, and suddenly, the whole space opened up. I was so happy because the view was almost completely clear. Almost. There was still one thing in the way, this old wooden cabinet. I already knew I wanted to keep it as a showpiece, but I just needed it out of the way for now. We rummaged through it, found restaurant supplies, and a couple of small pieces I really like. Once the cabinet was out, you could finally see it. A clean line of sight from the front door all the way to those waterfall windows. And with that, Sanso Tōda finally does what I know it was meant to do. Welcomes you in with a clear view of the waterfall. It was time to enter the heart of the beast, the kitchen. We had already been slowly clearing out a few things, but now it was time for the bulk of the work, including these massive appliances. For this first stage, I was sorting things off camera. By this point, the three of us had settled into a really good rhythm as a team. So what could have been overwhelming was actually pretty fun. Clearing out the kitchen was so important for a lot of reasons. First of all, the place was in terrible condition. From everything we had learned getting a food license for our shaved ice stand, we knew there was absolutely no chance this kitchen could pass a food safety inspection. So if we were going to do this properly, we would have to strip everything down to the bones and redesign it for our wellness-focused, farm-to-table Japanese restaurant. With that said, at this stage I was still holding on to a little sliver of hope that just maybe some of these appliances or stainless steel fixtures or ceramic ware could be salvaged. And on we continued, appliance by appliance, shelf by shelf, piece by piece. So many screws were completely rusted in place. I tried oil and a driver.
There we go.
And then eventually moved on to the hammer and crowbar. Piece by piece, the kitchen started to open up.
How are we looking? I don't want to break any bulbs either. We gotta get it like.
I continued to be amazed by Tom and Josh. Honestly, how lucky am I to be working with two guys who have such a strong work ethic and genuinely share my enthusiasm for this project. As more and more was coming out, it got clear just how dirty the floor was. It's a wet kitchen, meaning a waterproof floor with good drainage, so we decided to try the pressure washer. Unfortunately, this grime clearly needed some degreasing agents along with the pressure, so we made a note to research that and come back to this job later. Next, we hit one of the biggest problems, the deep fryer. It had been left full of oil for, who knows how long. I had looked up how to dispose of cooking oil in Japan, and what I found said to mix it with a product that solidifies the oil and then dispose of it as burnable trash. Now, you have to understand that before this, I had never touched a deep fryer in my life, and I really hadn't thought this through.
Have you ever used this before? Just like, if there was a karage in here, how much would you need to get?
Oh, wow.
Oh, there we go.
Damn. It's like hot pot.
Thankfully, Tom calmly pointed out that you can just drain it from the bottom.
Do you know how to drain the oil?
You open this up? Okay.
Of course you can just drain these things from the bottom. I knew that all along.
Alright. You ready? Hit it.
See all the flakes that we put in there?
How much better is doing that than carrying it with the oil and trying not to spill it everywhere?
Yeah.
And spilling it everywhere.
Yeah. Make it rest.
With the fryer drained, we were one big step closer to an empty kitchen. This steam cabinet is fairly new, top of the line quality, works great, and will definitely be useful.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, that's much better.
The gas stove was hard lined into the gas supply, and I didn't want to touch it without approval from the gas company.
It works.
We also decided to leave a couple of sinks in place so we'd still have access while working. But still, what a difference, right? Akiko and I went on our own little retreat to Karuizawa in Nagano Prefecture. We'd spent a summer vacation there with the kids a few years ago, and we wanted to come back just the two of us. Yes, this video is real, guys. Look at that smile on her face. Karuizawa has these amazing mossy roads and summer homes for wealthy families from Tokyo. And it's definitely not a well-kept secret from tourists. Then there's the John Lennon thing. He spent his summers here in the 70s. Everywhere you go, it's John Lennon bought these baguettes. John Lennon sat at this table and ordered this soup. John Lennon played this piano. John Lennon ordered these pancakes. After a while, I started wondering if John Lennon paid a parking fee in this honor box, or did his... Well, you get the picture. Most famously, John Lennon stayed at the Mampei Hotel, this 130-year-old classic Karuizawa mainstay, and Akiko and I were coming for 2 nights to rest and get a little inspiration. Honestly, the grounds here are beautiful. There were moments where I was walking around thinking, yeah, this feels a lot like Sanso Tōda. But the real thing that got me was how they handle their history. The Mampei has all these photos and artifacts, old room keychains over the years, little snapshots of renovations, and a simple timeline of how the hotel changed through major world events. It does not feel like a museum, just a few key items tastefully displayed in spots you naturally pass by. Seeing it made us feel more connected to the place, like we weren't just staying in a nice hotel, we were stepping into a story that's been unfolding for a long time. It also dawned on me that Sanso Tōda has an even longer history than the Mampei. And I started wondering, what treasures are we going to discover at Tōda that make guests feel like, wow, I'm connected to something beautiful and much greater than myself? What stories do these old wooden beams have to tell? And how will we find them? Oh, it's recording. I wanted to record time lapse. The water lines feeding the dishwasher and sinks had no shutoff valves and were hard plumbed, which meant I had to shut off the main water supply and physically cut the pipes to remove them. The plumbing here is an eclectic mix of PVC, galvanized steel, and copper. The PVC and galvanized steel were easy enough to cap off, but the copper is another story. I was going to have to solder it. Back in the US, I've used compression caps and push to connect fittings for jobs like this. I checked several local hardware stores and even online suppliers here with no luck. What I did find, to my surprise, were these very economical soldering kits, everything needed for a few small jobs without committing to a full professional setup. The real surprise was this torch. It's basically a lighter on steroids, and somehow works perfectly.
All right, it's gonna work.
On the second floor, there was an L-shaped kitchen with a food elevator down to the main kitchen. It had functioned as a service area for large parties in the main hall. Even though it was much smaller, cleaner, and far less cluttered than the main kitchen, this tight layout, narrow entrance, and second floor location made it an order of magnitude harder to clear out than any other room in the building. We started out with the small stuff to make enough space to get the bigger and bigger items out. A huge part of accomplishing something really big is made up of these difficult, unglamorous tasks. You just keep showing up and doing what there is to get done. In Japanese, there's a great word for this, jimichi. It literally means ground path, doing the work steadily, consistently, and humbly. And no, this isn't about grinding through life. No, guys, that's not even close. Every moment can still be honored and enjoyed, and you can do great things that fulfill you and inspire others. It simply means that when something needs to be done, whether it's your laundry or clearing decades of stuff from a Japanese kitchen, jimichi ni aru. Let's do it steadily, as best as we can. For us, all of this was really just warming up for the biggest challenge so far, this enormous 4-door commercial freezer. At first, it wouldn't move at all. It was wedged into the corner, tight against the walls, with a spaghetti mess of gas, water, and drainage pipes underneath that had tangled up the freezer's legs. It took us nearly an hour just to get it loose. The next challenge was getting it under an air duct and out through the narrow doorway, which meant we'd have to lay it on its side. Whew. We kept focusing on one small challenge at a time, just figuring out how to move it to the next position. And somehow, we kept finding a way. We do have a great English phrase for this. One step at a time. But the Japanese version is way more fun to say, so let me give it to you. Ippo Ippo. If you have something in your life that looks so huge, you don't even know how you're going to do it, just take the next small step forward. Ippo Ippo. Then figure out the next step after that when you get there. Once we got the freezer into the hallway, we faced the most difficult and probably most dangerous part. Getting it down the stairs. It was way too big and heavy for our dolly, so we had to improvise. We laid tarps over the stairs and ran ropes over a wooden support beam to lower it slowly and hopefully
A
safely.
little bit more to go. Okay, ready to brace the rope?
Okay.
You need some more?
Yep.
You're doing great. You need some more? We reached the step.
Awesome.
We did half the stair! Woo! Now this is the hard part.
I know.
Okay.
On 3, we're gonna pivot that way. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, good. Okay.
Let it down.
Much.
Let it down.
Whoa, hold on. Okay. Yep. Go. Okay, drop it.
I wanna go on.
Okay. Okay. Nice. That's one second.
So far looking good?
Yeah.
Everybody okay?
Uh-huh. So far, so good. As soon as it goes up like that, it's gonna want to slide a lot.
Okay, give it a few centimeters. Ready?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going down a step.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Ready?
Okay. Good.
Okay, and now I'm gonna guide it down.
Okay.
With one hand, can you push and one hand hold the rope?
Okay.
Ready? Go.
Hold on. Okay. Ready? Go.
Everybody secure?
Yeah.
Okay.
1,
Ready? Go. Slow and easy. Slow and easy.
Be careful, Tom. You're on the cart.
Everybody okay?
Yeah.
I'm holding
Wait
it.
a second. Okay.
Okay, I'm getting it to the full
Okay,
angle.
I've got my. Yep. I'm
Okay, just slowing it down now.
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
This is good. This is good so far. Good, good, good.
Touchdown.
Almost there. Nice.
There, we're there. It's done.
Bring this cart down. That beam was so helpful.
Yeah, everything went great. It was actually pretty enjoyable since the outcome was good. You got gloves, buddy? Getting that freezer out was a huge accomplishment and a huge relief. After that, everything else felt like child's play. Clearing a few remaining items and doing some straightforward plumbing to deal with the water and drainage lines. We left the gas pipes for the professionals. And just like that, we had a clean, open space up here. And when a room is this empty and orderly, it becomes so much easier to imagine what it can become.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear Tom.
What's your name, Tom? Just kidding.
Happy birthday to you.
Yeah, yeet.
Our hallways were feeling crowded with commercial appliances and metal lockers. Tom and I looked up serial numbers to estimate the age of each unit, and I called in a refrigeration specialist to test everything and give us repair estimates. Long story short, only one refrigerator made the cut, the one we had been using for cold drinks at the shaved ice stand over the summer. Everything else had to go. Somehow. Every time I drove up to Sanso Tōda, I noticed a metal scrapyard along the road with a sign on the fence, Recycle. One day, I finally stopped. I walked into the office, and from a back room, someone yelled out, Meishi! Meishi! Business card! Business card! A bit startled, I pulled out the card Akiko had made for me, and that's how I met Ri. I told him about Sanso Tōda, just 5 minutes up the road, and explained that we had 6 commercial refrigerators and freezers, lockers, and other metal items that needed to be removed. He listened carefully, nodded, and agreed to come take a look. Ri said he could handle everything and started explaining the pricing. We had a great rapport right away, even though Japanese wasn't either of our first languages. When he mentioned the prices, somewhere in the range to 1 to 8,000 yen each. I thought he was telling me how much he would be paying me for this scrap. I got so excited and said, let's do this. And the four of us spent the day loading, driving to his yard, and unloading. Many trips back and forth. I knew Josh had lived in China and knew how to speak Chinese, and it was so cool to hear him speaking with Rhi.
Okay. 等一下，有东西，先等一下。Is it somebody's stuff?
As I rode with Rhi in the truck, we talked about our kids. His son is a software engineer. About his life and family back in China. About how beautiful this area is and how lucky we are to live here. He also explained his business. The appliances are shipped overseas, usually to Vietnam or Taiwan, where they're refurbished and given a second life. Listening to Rhi talk about his work, I was so impressed by his knowledge of metals, appliances, and especially international shipping systems. And somewhere during those conversations, I realized I had made a mistake. It wasn't Rhi who was paying me. I was going to pay Rhi for this service. I was disappointed, but even then, it was far less expensive than hiring a private disposal company. And more importantly, nothing was going to be thrown away. Everything would be reused, repurposed, and returned in circulation. The whole thing amounted to just a few man yen, a couple $100. Later, in his office, I noticed shelves lined with bottles of alcohol. So the next day, I brought him a bottle of American whiskey. Whiskey ga suki desu ka? Do you like whiskey? I asked him. Daisuki, daisuki, he replied. I love it. And that's how we got rid of most of our metals, and I made friends with Rhi. Over the summer, I took our family out for tacos at a place in town right on the beach. They had done some remodeling, and what immediately caught my eye was the new bar. It wasn't built from expensive materials, but it was done with real creativity and care, and it fit the place perfectly. I noticed a guy walking around and said hello, and asked if he knew who had built the bar. He smiled and said, I did. And that's how I met Gary. The taco shop owner was a friend of his, but Gary's specialty is fine wood craftsmanship. He builds custom furniture, working with exceptional woods, with a level of care and knowledge that's immediately obvious once you know what you're looking at. One of the best things we inherited with Sanso Tōda were the wooden slab tables in the dining room. 7 tables, plus another slab they had been using as a signboard. At first glance, they might not look like anything special. But a few years ago, we went on a trip to Yakushima, an absolutely beautiful forested island not far from Fukuoka. We went on a guided hike in the eternal forest, which has living trees that are thousands of years old.
おいしいおいしいでしょ
もうちょっと飲みたいぐらい。
いいよもう飲み放題だから
And visited the Wood Museum. Just enough of what we learned stuck in my mind to recognize old-growth sugi, Japanese cedar, wood that's hundreds of years old, beautiful, and full of character. Slabs like these are almost impossible to find now, and if you do, they cost thousands of dollars each. The downside was that these tables had suffered years of abuse, deep cracks, warping, and maybe not the best sealing job. I told Gary about the tables and asked if he would want to come take a look, just to see if there's something he could work with. When Gary and his partner Kanako came out, watching him examine the tables was a revelation. As I was standing next to him, I suddenly saw details I had never noticed before. The grain patterns, where the tension in the wood was, subtle cues to the tree's life and the table's history.
Yeah, it's going to be some work to get these right, but you see what I was saying about the hardwood, like the cut of some of these pieces.
Has those deep cracks.
Well, this is the center of the wood here. This is like the heart, and then you have like surrounded with what they call the juvenile wood. Generally, when you have an ichimae, a slab that has this cut, they're like the naughtiest cut of the tree, basically.
With a single glance, Gary seemed to understand what each slab needed to become the best version of itself. To me, that's a clear sign of mastery, and that was the moment I knew I had met a wood master. Gary agreed to give me an estimate for flattening and sealing all of the slabs and building custom bases for them using reclaimed old-growth keyaki, another local Japanese hardwood that would complement the sugi far better than the newer pine bases they were sitting on. In my heart, I was already sure the tables were in the right hands, and I can't wait to see what Gary does with them. It's just amazing how something like going out for tacos or saying hello to people can redirect the course of events in life. And just as a small spoiler, refurbishing the tables doesn't even scratch the surface of the importance of who I had met that day. Our next stop was a repurposed chicken farm about 30 minutes out of town. The owners, who a mutual friend had connected us to, had started manufacturing machines for mineral baths. They used to have 10 massive chicken houses, 100 meters long each, raising millions of chickens. Now there's just one roof left, serving as a farmhouse, a small school, and their mineral bath storehouse and showroom. Yano-san described to us how he became obsessed with water quality when he shifted their poultry company to raising drug and antibiotic-free chickens, and seeing how much of a difference water quality made to the chicken's health. He developed a blend of minerals intended to support rejuvenation, and he can customize it for each person. He also invented a way to more highly concentrate the minerals into these ceramic balls, and designed bath systems that continuously circulate the water as it is heated, naturally filtered, and mineralized. I had no idea what equipment was needed to properly maintain a commercial hot bath, so I was especially interested in seeing his setup and understanding how it works. The Yanos were incredibly generous with their time, knowledge, and energy. And if you ever want to feel inspired, find someone who's deeply passionate about what they're doing. Ask them a question about it, and then just sit back and listen. They also let Akiko and I try out the baths. We felt incredibly warm for hours afterwards, and more relaxed for the next couple of days. And as if that wasn't enough hospitality, they also have an award-winning taiko drum group, and they played a private concert for us. There's something about the deep vibration of those drums and the spirit of the people playing them that left us genuinely moved. In just a few hours, I had a clear picture of what a top-tier commercial bath setup looks like and how to make it into a world-class wellness experience. While all the indoor work is going on, there's always plenty of outdoor maintenance as well. I had a few friends come out to help. A lot of people who visit or pitch in are camera shy and ask me to blur their faces or not film them at all. But not Alan. I even tried to rein him in and explain that this is a very serious YouTube channel we're filming for here. In the end, though, you have to let Alan be Alan. And thankfully, he has a real knack for yard work, so I am extremely grateful to have him. There were lots of other rooms, areas, and cluttered corners we cleared out and cleaned. But the last one I want to show you is what used to be the main reception desk. At some point, it had been closed off and turned into a storage closet. I wasn't sure yet whether we'd use it again as the reception desk, but I was completely sure it needed to be opened up to give the lobby more space and breathing room. Once the space was opened up, I started imagining all the amazing people who are going to be walking through that door and discovering this place for themselves. And I just couldn't help myself.
Irasshaimase! Woo!
Remember earlier when I said I'd show you where everything we carried off screen went? Well, this is it. We ended up with thousands of maybe staying items. Ceramics, glassware, furniture, appliances, and all kinds of objects that clearly do belong in our future. More on that stuff in just a minute. And then there was the definitely has to go pile. In Japan, sorting your trash is a sacred discipline. So we had to do things properly. First, separating all of the small stuff into burnables, recyclables, and non-burnables, bagged up and carried down to the pickup point about 100 meters away. But the real problem was everything that doesn't fit in one of those 45-liter bags. Bulk trash in Japan has strict rules. When I looked at the pile that had built up under one of the empty houses, I honestly had no idea how we were going to make it disappear. Recycled a lot of the metal. For the rest, I called on an old friend, Yamamoto-san, whose company had helped remodel our home years ago. He came out, took a look, and gave a fair estimate to haul it away based on the total tonnage. I was out of town when they did the work, but coming back to this empty space felt like someone had lifted a weight off the property. There is one more small definitely has to go category. Shrine items, especially ofuda, the protective paper talismans. You return them back to the shrine so the priests can respectfully dispose of them. Then it was time to deal with the even harder category. The maybe staying wing was an entire section of the building filled with things that we needed to take a closer look at, including this entire room filled with just ceramics, which to me looked like piles of dusty dishes that I did not want to deal with. That is until, once again, exactly the right people showed up at exactly the right time. John and Yui came for a nature walk in the gorge and just showed up at our door one day. John is a photographer, and Yui is, get this, a professional kintsugi artist. Kintsugi is the art of repairing broken ceramics with a natural lacquer called urushi, and most often coating it with gold dust to make what were cracks and imperfections into the most beautiful part of the piece. Yui looked at our ceramics the way Gary looked at our wood tables, as treasures with deep history and amazing potential.
山に徳の釜って書いて。
蛇の肌みたいですね。
ああ、色もね、ちょっと。
色も、デザインも。
確かに。
After about 2 hours with Yui, the part of my brain that processes ceramics got completely rewired. I started noticing subtle textures and colors, understood the difference between handmade and mass-produced. And we realized we had pieces that were custom-made locally just for this place, plus a few beautiful items from well-known kilns. What had felt to me like a burden started to feel like incredible potential. The shift in how I saw the ceramics was so dramatic. I started to reflect. Where else in Sanso Tōda, and in my life, are there treasures already sitting right in front of me? What, and maybe even who, do I just not understand well enough yet to be able to recognize the real potential there? Meanwhile, John was taking some of the beautiful footage you've been seeing of the ceramics and of the nature around us, and gave me a few videography tips that really expanded my previous knowledge beyond point camera, press record. After John and Yui left, Josh and I kept sorting the remaining odds and ends, some of which will become showpieces in our hallways and guest rooms. I could go on for hours about all this stuff, but let me just give you 3 highlights. We inherited this old grandfather clock that is really beautiful and still works.
Nice.
Then there's the statue of my grandfather. I still can't believe he was here waiting for us at Sanso Tōda. Everyone in the family misses him so much. We also found this foot massaging machine that looks like it's from the 70s and is honestly pretty terrifying.
最初はグー、じゃんけんぽん。あいこでしょ。
Oh, I choose. All right.
So your choice is 1 foot each.
1 foot each.
Yeah, both of us are going to the hospital and neither of us can drive.
Oh, man. Oh. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Come on, man. Come
I
on.
heard some noise before.
Well, I'll see if we can write it off as a tax loss. Sorry, buddy. You've massaged your last foot.
The things we choose to keep shape the quality of our space. Our job is to keep what aligns with the kind of space we want to create and let the rest go. I walked through the building, removing the last little odds and ends. And then I found something that changed how I see Sanso Tōda forever. We had found plenty of cool, useful, and valuable items, but we were still missing any real connection to Sanso Tōda's history. We'd heard the local stories about this land historically being a place of healing and spiritual communion. More than one person told us there's a white dragon spirit in the well. But there was nothing concrete. Deep down, I knew. If we wanted the real history of the place, we needed more than rumors. We needed something tangible. Then Akiko got a text from Mrs. S., who worked here for 20 years. She was offering to show us how to prepare for snow during our first winter. That was so generous of her, and to me, it was a chance to ask some questions. She was incredibly kind. I showed her around, and she was absolutely blown away by how we'd cleaned the place out. Then she said something that stopped me cold. If I wanted, she could come back with a photo of Kanenobu-san, the head chef and owner who ran this place from 1992 until 2022, and his close group of friends who loved hunting wild boar. When I asked if it was okay to share it on YouTube, she said okay, on the condition I also show you their hunting dogs, who called here their home as well. In my mind, this was monumental. Now there wasn't just a previous owner, but real people with faces, friendships, and memories. Then one day, while sorting through items we had just tossed onto the maybe keeping pile, I cracked open yet another dusty cardboard box. At first it looked like another mess of papers in Japanese for me to decipher. I almost tossed it. And then I saw it. A photo album. Inside were dated photos of the 1992 renovation, clear pictures of the building's structure, beams and bones. I recognized each wooden beam instantly. There it was, the history of this building staring me in the face. I was genuinely euphoric. This wasn't just cool. This was the exact link I had been searching for. And it didn't stop there. The box was full of original blueprints, designs, and business materials. And in Kanenobu-san's own words, the intention wasn't just to run a restaurant. He wrote about his dream to create a place integrated with nature, a space for rejuvenation and healing. I thought it couldn't get any better until I looked through the box piece by piece for the second time and found a small envelope. Inside were handwritten notes made by someone named Yoda Yukio, titled Nogouchi Gorge Development History. The first line stopped me cold. He writes about returning home from his war deployment in Nagasaki Prefecture on October 4th, 1945. That's less than 2 months after the devastating event that happened there. He takes a job at the small local elementary school here and turns toward quietly rebuilding. From there, the notebook becomes a record of him and his students exploring Nogouchi Gorge again and again, sketching, measuring distances, naming places, taking photos, and even making guidebooks by hand. They had made a couple hundred copies of the guidebook. They even tracked their results, visitor counts, guidebooks sold, day by day. I unfolded the map he drew of the gorge trails, and I finally understood why there are signs of landmarks along the trail that sound like they were named by children. Because they were named by children. Then I saw drawn at the trailhead is Takiyama-so, the old name of the place we now call Sanso Tōda. In that moment, it stopped being rumors and speculation. I was holding the real records in my hands. I didn't know it until then, but finding those records is the real reason we cleared this place ourselves instead of hiring a company to bulldoze through and toss everything. Yoda-sensei and Mrs. S are now ambassadors to our history. And my new models for Jimichi. Having gone through everything with my own hands and cleared the place out, and now having all of this new understanding of the property's history, I feel that Sanso Tōda has become my home too, a home for the soul. And, taking inspiration from the Mampei Hotel, I can already see the display we'll create. And now you, this YouTube community, has become an important part of the history as well. And I already know exactly where we're going to put the display honoring this community and the contribution it has already been to this project. Stick around, because this is happening, baby. Ippo Ippo. Thank you so much for watching until this final chapter. My intention is that this video wasn't just entertaining, but inspiring. So if you were inspired to take action in an area of life that matters to you, please leave a message in the comments and let me know. If you're one of those people who already knows you want to attend a retreat here, or host your group's event or retreat at this facility, or just visit here as a guest, please visit us at sansotoda.com and register for the newsletter. That way you'll be the first to know when booking becomes available. I'm so grateful to you out there for watching and cheering for us, and I wish you a wonderful day, wonderful week, wonderful life, wonderful life. See you again in episode 5. We saw you on YouTube. Good luck with your project. Cheers. Marco and Eva Green, the Netherlands. Thanks, Marco and Eva. That's awesome. So cool.